You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with us right now is an unsung hero in the world of professional wrestling. He has a new book out, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment, but I'm speaking, of course, of Pat Rose. Are you with me, sir?
Hey, man, how you doing? Proud to be here, man. Thanks for having us.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. And like I said, you have a new book out, Pat Rose. It's called From the Ring to the Real, the Pat Rose Story. Basically, I'd like to find out a little bit about what made you decide to finally sit down and write your story.
Well, you know what? I was talking to a guy, a friend of mine from Louisiana named Brian Boney, and he's wrote books before, and he just called me and said, Pat, let's write a book about you and about your career. And I said, well, okay, what do we do? And he had me, you know, I'd sit here by myself and I'd record, you know, different stories, story about Puerto Rico, story about Texas, whatever. And I would do it, recording it, and I would send it to him, and he would put it in text. And we did that back and forth for several months, and it just come out good. The book come out really good. Got a lot of good pictures, and a lot of old school pictures, and a lot of high school pictures from wrestling, and the whole deal. So I love the picture part of it.
Very cool. And I want to thank the Cauliflower Alley Club. They kind of put the high sign out there, the bat signal, if you will, out there to let people know that the book was available. The Cauliflower Alley Club, they do a lot of stuff that pro wrestlers really deserve. I wanted to give them some praise.
Oh, yeah, man. B. Brian Breyer and the guys out there, they do a great job. They really do.
All right. So how did you end up falling in love with the crazy business that we call professional wrestling?
Oh, my Lord. Well, in Chattanooga is a big history place for professional wrestling. The Memorial Auditorium, WDEF TV 12 in Chattanooga. The original building is still there. They still use the studios. It's a little bit, you know, everything is different inside the studio, but it's still the same, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And, man, at 12 years old, going to wrestling with my cousin Joni, she's passed away now.
I'm sorry.
And I just fell in love with it, seeing Don Fargo, Jackie Fargo, crazy Luke Graham and Ripper Collins, the spoilers, the interns. It was just classic, man. It was classic old school wrestling, and I loved it from the start.
Very good. And one of the first territories that you worked for was under Nick Goulas, and I think he's the one who gave you your name, the name that we know you as anyway. What was it like working for Nick Goulas? I just did an interview with Hector Guerrero a couple weeks ago, and he told us some Nick Goulas stories that were pretty interesting.
Well, you know what? You'll hear all kind of stuff from Nick. He didn't pay. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. But as far as I'm concerned, he took care of me. I don't know. I guess he liked me. I don't know. But, you know, I started out at 19 and, you know, wrestled as Pat Smith for a little while. And he come up to me, and being a 19-year-old kid, you know, he said, hey, from now on, your name is Pat Rose. You don't look like a Smith. Because I'm a dark-skinned guy, Indian guy. So I said, well, yes, sir. I mean, you know, and the rest is history on the name. But Nick Goulas, to me, was great to me. He took care of me at 19, me and Rocky Brewer. They had confidence in us holding the NWA Mid-America tag titles, and we won them from Wayne Ferris and
That's
Larry
right.
Latham.
I just
And you
ran into
don't
him the
get
other
no
day, by the way, Wayne Ferris. He's out here.
honky.
Yep, I'm out here in Arizona, so he's a local guy for us now. Anyway.
Very cool.
Yep.
He's a good guy. Love the honky tonk, man. Love him.
Very cool. And like I said, I actually had that on the list. You guys won the tag titles from the Blonde Bombers and got that honor. And in another interview, something that made me think, at some point I need to start doing video because I just never really wanted to be on camera. But you actually have a replica of that tag team championship belt. Is that those kind of mementos? What do those kind of mementos mean to you, holding on to the replica belts of the titles that you've won?
Well, you know what? It means a lot. I mean, it shows where you've been, what you've done. And to me, I mean, it's for me. It's cool for me. I don't, hey, this is da-da-da-da. I don't do that. But it's for me and my son. And, hopefully when I pass away, he'll still have the belts and remind him of me and the whole deal. But it's just an honor that these different belts thought enough about us to put them on us, and that's very special to me.
Very cool. And maybe because of Jim Cornette's podcast, but maybe more so than ever, the Georgia Superstars, the Georgia Stars that you were part of with Ole Anderson and all that, has gotten a little more attention than maybe it had at the time. And that was a big part of your career as well, working under Ole Anderson and as part of Georgia Wrestling. I guess my question was, unfortunately, as you know, we lost Ole earlier this year. Any thoughts or memories you'd like to share about the great Ole Anderson? And I'll tell you my story about him if you're at all interested too.
Oh, I'm very interested. I love Ole Anderson. He was a hard ass. He was a hard ass. But, you done your job and you worked hard. He was good to you. And that's what I done. I knew my job. I worked hard. And like I said, he was good to me because, and listen to this, in the 80s, early 80s, I'm a kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee, going down to Atlanta, Techwood Drive, doing Georgia Championship Wrestling at the start. And then it changed into World Championship Wrestling. But, going down there at Techwood Drive and doing TV, and I'm sitting beside, Paul Orndorff and Tommy Rich and Mr. Wrestling 2 and all these guys that I've seen on TV. And Ole always took care of me. He gave me good matches. He did give me the Road Warriors, but he knew that I knew how to bump and protect myself not to get hurt from them because they were green as grass in the beginning, and look what they turned out to be. And, Lord, it was, let me tell you a story about coming through the control room. I just got a win on national TV over Dale Beasy, who is one of the top enhancement guys during that time. So here I come walking through the control room, and Ric Flair and Ole are sitting at the controller or whatever, and they said, "Pat, come here." And they asked me, they said, what are you doing right now? Do you work a job? Do you do this? You do that? And I said, and my daughter Erica was just born, and I said, yeah, I work a job. And they asked me, would I like to work full time? And I told them no. And because my daughter just was born, and I wanted to stay with her. And I said no, and that's a kind of what if situation,
Yeah.
Could I be dead like all the guys, like Buzz Sawyer and all these guys, and I made the right decision to say no, and whatever.
Do you ever, I mean, obviously you do because you just brought it up, but do you think back to that moment a lot? I mean, is that something that you maybe do wonder what would have been?
Well, when I do interviews, I mention it, but I don't think about it a lot. I mean, nah, I don't think about it a lot. I've had a good career, and I've met some outstanding people in my day, and got to wrestle anybody that's anybody in the '80s. And no, I'm happy. I'm good to go.
All right. You did an excellent interview with another site, and I'm not going to rip off those guys' interview. I'm going to try to ask different questions. But the one story that I did want to go over with you that you told in that was really touching was your story about your experience with Mr. Wrestling 2 and how much the opportunity to work with him meant to you. Would you mind sharing that story with us?
Oh, don't mind at all, man. I'm sitting right here, and I'm staring at the. I got, those head dummies you get from. Where do you get them from?
I don't even know what
Hobby
the
Lobby
styrofoam
or
heads,
something like that.
Yeah, Al
Styrofoam
Snow.
heads,
Al Snow made a lot of money off of those.
There you go. There you go. I'm sitting here staring at a Wrestling 2 match that I wore, tagging with him, man. And Mr. Wrestling 2 was my childhood hero, man. And, I wrestled ever since the 8th grade in junior high school up till the senior. Then I got into pro wrestling, and my hero was Wrestling 2 during all that time. And we would get the field house was a little small building that had a hell of a heater in it. And, you'd have to make weight in amateur wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be challenged for my starting position by 5 different guys. Now, these guys wasn't slouches. This was 155, 138 weight class, those are the studs. And I would have to beat all 5 of them to keep my starting position. But let me tell you what I would do. I had a picture of Mr. Wrestling 2 taped on the bottom of my gym bag. And I would sit it on the side, and there would be Wrestling 2 to me looking at me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that just gave me some power or something. But my son, Camden, plays country music. And we were at a place called the Brew House in Rome, Georgia, and I had got a call from Robert Walker, and he said, "Well, let me put Dad on the phone. Dad is 2." And I sat there, and he stared at me, I stared at him. He couldn't talk, and I just told him I loved him. And man, a couple of weeks later, he had passed away. I don't know if he knew, that it was time or not, but I really, really cherish that phone call and my son being with me and the whole deal, man.
That's amazing.
It was something.
What year would that have been? 2020? Is that around that time frame, or?
Yeah, wow. It had to be. What do you think, Camden? 2020? Yeah, about 2020.
Very cool. All right. Well, yeah, I loved that story when you told it on that, and it sounds like they may have forgotten to mention it, so I'm glad you got that in there, and I definitely wanted that to be part of this conversation because it's an amazing story.
Oh, thank you, man.
So if you look at your history, you've been everywhere. I mean, there's that song, "I've Been Everywhere, Man," but you've been in Mid-South Wrestling, you've been in Dallas, you've been in Memphis Wrestling. You've really been everywhere, and you've seen all the different styles and all the different approaches by the bosses. Which was your favorite of the old school territories to work in?
Golly, it had to be a couple of them. Memphis, going in from Mid-South, Dundee put me and Tom Pritchard and Sherry Martell together, and working with the Fabs and, the Fantastics, rock and roll. Golly, that was fun. But then again, I was in Mid-South again, and Arn Anderson calls me, and he says, "Hey, Pat, if you notice, get down here to Pensacola." And Arn Anderson calls you. "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." So, and he and I was friends, and that's what I done. Gave him a notice. Next thing I know, I'm in Pensacola tagging with two. That's where we got the tag. Now, after a few months, and this gave me longevity too, but after a few months, two went to WWE. I think it was WWF at the time, but WWE. And they unmasked me and with Wrestling 2 there and put me with Randy Rhodes. And they put the titles on us, the Southeastern Tag titles, and wrestled the Rat Patrol all the time and trained all the Armstrongs when they were first getting in the business, Scott and Steve.
Yeah.
And, yeah, man, that was fun. So it had to be Memphis and Southeastern Championship Wrestling with the Fullers.
Very cool. That stuff was awesome, that Southeast wrestling. That was some amazing stuff.
Oh, that was great, man. That was great.
Yeah, I'm a guy from northern New Jersey, like New York City, and I was getting tapes of that stuff to watch it because that was awesome wrestling. I loved that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right. I appreciate what you guys did, that's for sure. And you mentioned that you trained some guys. You mentioned the Armstrongs. Of course, the biggest star that you trained, because he's one of the biggest stars ever, is The Undertaker. Did you realize that a guy his size with his look had the potential to be the phenom that he became?
You know what? Yes. And but back in the day, and I when Sid Vicious was doing what did he do? The hockey mask?
Lord Humongous.
Lord Humongous. He was doing that, and we were in Birmingham, and I was sitting there with him, and he says, "Pat, what do I need to do, man? Do I need to quit?" Da, 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 da. I said, "No, it's not your time, Sid. When it's your time, you'll get the push." And look what he done in his career, man. I'm glad he didn't hang it up and go home.
I was actually going to ask you about Sid, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I messaged his son and gave my condolences and stuff like that. But Sid was, man, he was what a body, jeez, what a body.
I interviewed him twice. He just always really cool to me, really nice, and he's got that potential where you think that maybe he is a little nuts. You always thought, there's a chance I might ask the wrong question and he might rip me, through the phone. But no, never did. Always was nice to me. So I was really sad to hear we lost him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and he used to take care of me. Him and Dan Spivey, when they were the skyscrapers or something?
Yeah, they were the skyscrapers.
And we'd have to work them on Atlanta TV, and he'd take care of me. So.
All right. Well, you did have a little bit of a run in the WWE, WWF yourself as an enhancement talent. I interviewed Black Bart fairly recently. I love Black Bart. He's one of my favorite guys. Just a genuine human being. But
yeah, man.
He spoke a little bit about the treatment of the, let's call them enhancement wrestlers in WWE, and that he didn't necessarily love the way that you guys were always treated. What was your experience like as working the WWF territory?
It was good, and I was on my way out and got to do some TV for them, and got to travel with Hawk. We traveled from Huntsville, Alabama to Nashville, and had a good conversation. I loved Hawk. Me and Animal knew each other and were buds, but Hawk and I had a different relationship. But yeah, I got to do Huntsville, Nashville, Chattanooga, and a couple other towns. And I walked in the first time and shook hands with Vince McMahon, and I guess he knew who I was. And nice to meet you, sir. And all the guys, nice to meet you. And they treated me good. I mean, paid me well. And, different pay scale, I guess. I don't know, but they took care of me.
That's awesome. So, of
Yeah.
course, you probably get asked this a lot because Jim Cornette did a video that ended up on his YouTube about you, and maybe one of your brighter spots in wrestling was with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You were part of that. Basically, the last of the territories, if you think about it. What was your thoughts
Yeah.
on Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Jim Cornette's approach to pro wrestling with that promotion?
Jim Cornette is a genius. I love Jim Cornette. He's met my son, and his advice to my son was win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. And that's what we live by here at the Rose household, right, Campbell? But yeah, Cornette and Smoky Mountain, beautiful territory, man. Short trips, the whole deal, and enjoyed it there. Had a great time there.
Very good. And he mentioned a couple of things in his video about you that I wanted to bring up. The first one kind of surprised me. He described you as vertically challenged. And I don't know why, but I never really thought of you as particularly short. Maybe because I'm a particularly short guy myself. But did you feel that way? Did you feel like during your career that you were, not as tall as some of the other guys?
Well, not at all. And these days, compared to my son, I'm a dead gum midget. But back in the day, no, I didn't feel like I wrestled everybody, and no, I didn't feel that at all, and that surprised me when he said that. He called me a good worker, but I was short. What? And I think I'm taller than Mike Pappas, my favorite wrestler too. And got to meet Mike Pappas. You ever heard of him?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm drawing a blank on him, but I'm sure if I look him up on Google, it'll immediately ring the bells.
Yeah, look him up, man. He's tagged with Andre and everybody, man. Mike Pappas was a short wrestler, and he was good, high flying deal,
Well, I messaged you last night, and I said that I had to ask you about this. What is the Pigman that apparently you do an impression of?
All right, now picture this going down the road. Dennis driving, Bobby in the passenger seat, Jimmy behind Dennis, and me behind Bobby. And me and Cornette is talking. I just put my finger up to my nose and pushed my nose up, and somehow started talking that way. And he just thought that was the funniest thing, man. And I'd do it to him all the time, and he would just bust a gut, man. We had fun with that.
Very cool. So some of your later days in the wrestling business was with WCW, when WCW was kind of in that transition period from the Southern TBS promotion to the international juggernaut that it became for a short time before it went completely and totally out of business. But you kind of were a part of that with wrestling guys like Rob Van Dam, wrestling guys like, I believe it was your last match with Jim Duggan. What was your experience like for the last run with WCW when you had the growth of the promotion and the transition with Eric Bischoff in charge?
Man, it was fun, and they used me a lot. Used me on runs down to Key West and back, and I was booked against Elegante, and Gordon Soley was still around at the time, and I think Gordon liked me because he said, "No, Pat Rose, you're not wrestling with Elegante," because he knew what it would be, and he put me with Tommy Rich for the week, for the run, and I got to travel with Dutch Mantell and who's Diesel?
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash. Oh, you talking about some funny dudes. We had some fun. And I remember I got to wrestle, seems like it was Tommy the whole trip. Somehow Tom Zink comes into play somewhere. I don't remember, but yeah, man, WCW, we used to go in and do TVs at center stage, and we would go by the office and grab freaking T-shirts like crazy. I mean, they'd let us. I guess they were going out of business. I don't know, but they let us grab T-shirts, and we had all kind of WCW T-shirts. Me and Bob Cook and everybody. And but yeah, it was fun. It was good.
Very good. And you mentioned a few people there. You mentioned Gordon Soley. I did want to ask you a question about that. I used to be good friends with Bob and Pam Allen. And I know Bob passed away a few years ago, and I can't find Pam Allen on the planet Earth. Do you know if she's still with us?
Pam Allen.
That's Gordon Soley's daughter.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, she had released a few books about her dad, and we were doing a lot of promotion for it, and then she just kind of disappeared. It was kind of a little weird. But
wow.
It's funny you mentioned...
she's okay.
I hope so, too. You mentioned Elegante, and it reminded me of my interview with Sid. This was the question, and this was the answer. Was it difficult to work with Elegante, was my question. And there was a pause on the other end, and Sid goes, yeah. And that was the end of it. He didn't elaborate. There was nothing else to that question, just, yeah. And I think that kind of answered everything I needed to know.
Well, Elegante passed away, didn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately, a few years ago, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to work with him. I never had to work with him, and I don't know if he would take care of me or not. I don't know, so I wouldn't want to work with him.
All right. Well, when we fast forward to modern times, we've got a couple of things going on in your world. Of course, we got the book, and we'll come back to that before we finish. But one thing you talked about a little bit was your son deciding to get involved in professional wrestling. Of course, you said he's a country music musician, but he's also thinking about getting involved in pro wrestling. What do you think about your son getting involved in this crazy business?
I'll tell you what, I absolutely love it. And I tell you why. It's brought me back to professional wrestling. It's brought me back loving the sport again, working out with him and helping train him. A guy named Jaden Newman, which is a great little wrestler from here in Chattanooga, and they run TWE Chattanooga here in Red Bank. And he's mostly training Camden, and Camden's doing real good. He's already done a little angle with a guy named Drago. Have you heard of him yet?
Oh, Drago. Yes, I have, in fact. He was with, if it's the same one, he was with Lucha Underground, was he not?
He looks like Lex Luger.
Oh, okay.
Are we talking about the same guy?
No, I'm talking about a small Mexican guy. So I think we're talking about somebody.
No, Drago, he was trained by Cody and them down there at the, what is that place called?
Nightmare Factory?
Nightmare Factory, that's right. He was trained by them, and Camden went out and sang the national anthem. And here come Drago and them after they finish. And Drago, being Ukrainian, had the Ukrainian flag. And Camden goes to walk away, and they nail Camden in the back. And Camden takes a pretty little bump, and he's getting up. And they nailed Camden with the flag in the head. So needless to say, he was bleeding. So here comes Dad, and I'm covering Camden. They get me up, nail me, and then we go and do an interview. And I could not. I've had Camden. I've got a radio show, Set the Hook and Pat Rose, and I've been doing it about 17 years in January. But I've had Camden on the radio ever since he was 3. So I knew that Camden could do this. And he pulled it off perfectly, man. Took a good bump, did the honors, did the interview, and it was good. And it's still out there somewhere. And, man, it was great. But he's something else. And he still plays music. He's open for Shenandoah. Confederate Railroad and a few other people, and got a show coming up September 21st here in Chattanooga at Merrill House. And matter of fact, he's going to train tonight and tomorrow night. I'll go with him tomorrow night. And he's doing really good. He's doing really good. And we see his first match, official first match here soon, here very soon.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I mentioned a few things in your world. You kind of already mentioned it, but you do a radio show. You do a radio show about fishing, and it's an interesting thing. You don't necessarily think of, you think of sports talk, you think of football, you think of baseball. You don't necessarily think of fishing. How'd that come to be, and how did you fall in love with fishing?
Well, I've always liked fishing, and one thing I wish I had done, like Black Bart did, is when I was on the road, take the opportunity to fish all these places we were at, and I did. But I've always loved fishing. There was a guy at church come up to me, and he said he knew I wrestled, and he owned a radio station. He said, "Pat, why don't you do a radio show?" And I said, "Well, okay." And we started doing a radio show here in the little town of Trenton, Georgia. And I was having guests back in the day like Bill Dance and Jimmy Houston and Ray Scott. He's passed away. And Martin. What's his name? Golly. Roland Martin. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? I'm having all these big guests for this little radio station. Let's take it to Chattanooga. So that's what we did. Got on ESPN 105.1 The Zone, stayed there for years, and finally just come back, and we're doing it ourselves here at the house when COVID hit. And we bought all the stuff to record and all that. So we do it here, and we ship it out to all of our radio stations. Plus, we do it in a podcast that you can get it at setthehook.com. Just go there, and it'll show you all the places that you can stream it.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. And 17 years is a long time to be doing that. So that's amazing that you've had, that kind of success with the radio show.
Yeah, man, it's like this. You never say no, or you never quit. Just keep going.
There you go. And you mentioned September 21st. There's also, in addition to your son's concert, there's also a big Memphis reunion happening. I believe Randy Hales is putting it together. And, man, I can tell you, if I was anywhere nearby, if I could get there, I would, because what a great assortment of talent from my childhood that are going to be all over that reunion. Do you want to talk a little bit about that big reunion on the 21st?
Yeah, you know what? I might have got that date wrong. It's September 19th. September 19th is Camden show, and then the 21st we go to Jackson, Tennessee. And, oh, my Lord, the guys that are going to be there, Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, Rock and Roll, Coco Ware, Jimmy Cornette, anybody that was anybody in Memphis wrestling is going to be there. Jimmy Valiant, Lord, just a host of them. Danny Davis, everybody's going to be there.
That's amazing. I wish I could be there. Hey, do you know how is Bill Dundee doing? I've heard some mixed things recently.
Well, you know what? I talked to him the other day. I ordered a painting from his wife. She paints his boots, and I got a picture of his boots on my wall, signed by Bill Dundee. Love it. But he's doing good.
Glad to hear.
Yeah, me too, man. And I've talked to him several times and got to tell him I love him and all that stuff. About a year, maybe 2 years ago, he was still doing the wrestling thing, and he was in East Ridge. And that's a little suburb of Chattanooga. And he come back to stay with me at my house. And we just sat up and just talked and reminisced and the whole deal, man. And I enjoyed that time with Bill. Bill took good care of me. He was a booker. And in Mid-South, he took good care of me and made me some good money.
I don't even remember what it was to promote, but I was lucky enough to scoop him up when he was available for an interview about 5 years ago. And it
Oh,
was
cool.
so amazing just to get his stories about everything, not just, what everybody wanted to talk about, which is, the fight with Randy Savage and things like that, but everything else that he had to talk about. And one of the most honest people you'll ever meet. Just such a funny, folksy kind of guy.
Love him to death.
All right, so my final question for you kind of goes back to where we started, which was about the book. And let me make sure I get this right. From the Ring to the Real, the Pat Rose story. It's out there now for people to purchase. Where can people pick this book up? And what might they learn about Pat Rose that they never knew before?
Hey, let me give you to my son Camden and let him promote his stuff as well, will you?
Absolutely.
All right. Come on, Camden. What's going on, man?
Hey, Camden, it's a pleasure to speak with you. How are you?
Yes, sir. You too, man. I'm doing good. So I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about my dad's book. It's really cool. I'm 19 years old and I'm training to be a professional wrestler myself, and I play music and all other sorts of fun things. And man, I've always felt that it was important to share my dad's story because I thought it was special. We're from Trenton, Georgia. I was born and raised here, and so was he. And man, not a lot of people from somewhere like we're from do the things that he's done. So I've always felt it's important to share his story. And he's really secure in who he is and what he's done, man. He always tells me, man, I know what I've done, and I ain't got nothing to prove, and rightfully so. But always as a son, I want to keep the hard work, the stuff that's paid off due to his hard work. I want to keep all that memorized. You know what I mean? And but anyway, yeah. So finally, we got it in a book form, and it's From the Ring to the Real, the Pat Rose story. And man, it's such a great book. I don't read books. I don't sit down and read. I never was a great student in school. But man, this right here is an awesome read, man. I'm telling you, from cover to cover, it's awesome. And anyway, yeah, From the Ring to the Real, the Pat Rose story. It's $25 for just a regular copy, and it's $40 for a personalized autographed copy. You can either message myself on Facebook under Camden Smith, Camden Smith, or message Dad. And man, all you gotta do is tell us which one you want. We accept Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Zelle. We'll settle up, and then man, we'll get you a book, and you guys can hear about the Pat Rose story. So.
Absolutely, and I will put a link to your guys' Facebook accounts on there so you guys can hopefully get some orders in for that, because I want to help get this story out there. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy, and like I said, when I saw the Cauliflower Alley Club put it out there, that the book was out there, I thought, man, that's a great idea for a book. A great guy who was everywhere in pro wrestling, so it means a lot to a fan like me to know that story's out there as well.
Absolutely, man. Obviously to call it, I've grown up, because of Dad, understanding the importance of all the guys that you guys have mentioned today. Mr. Wrestling 2, all those guys, and the Cauliflower Alley Club, man. That's a legendary deal, and it has been for a long time. So when they posted about it, and them, who the social media director for them and myself, I've conversated about some stuff, and man, they were super supportive, and that really means a ton. And that's a big deal in the world of professional wrestling to have the Cauliflower Alley Club post about you. So I'm really, he deserves it as far as I'm concerned. And he was one of the. We were talking about that, the other day, man. I'm sorry for rambling on. I know this is
not at all,
Dad, but
not at all.
We were talking the other day. Dad's job. Dad knew his job, and he did his job. As far as I'm concerned, he was one of the best during his time. Mm-hmm. And that's what made him such a great professional wrestler. Is he knew his job. His job was just like mine, man. Opening up for these bands. His job was first, second, or third match, getting them ready for the rock and roll, the Midnight Express matches, right? The main event. My job as an opener, when I'm opening up for these bands like Shenandoah, Confederate Railroad, Red Clay Strays, my job is to get them ready for the main event, who they come and paid to see. And man, it takes a lot of humility to understand that, because I know not a lot of guys in professional wrestling nowadays and in music,
really understand that if you're in that position. So I have a lot of respect for the enhancement talents.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? Enhancement guys. They're not jobbers. That's a BS term. It's disrespectful and it's stupid. They are enhancement guys. They are carpenters, because it's guys like Pat Rose, Dale Veazey, guys like that this professional wrestling business was built on their backs. So I want everybody to know that, first and foremost.
I agree. I actually agree with that. I've done a few interviews of late with guys like Dale Wolf, who was another enhancement guy, and there's a big part of the business. Unfortunately, it's not done anymore. There's not many guys like that anymore. Everybody is there's no parity in wrestling anymore. Everybody's on the same level, and everybody can go out there. And the guy who jerks the curtain can have a half-hour match with the guy who's in the main event, and it kind of makes everybody seem less special because there's not enough levels to this, and there should be. But your dad was very important to pro wrestling, and I'm glad you're promoting it. You mentioned your music. Where can people maybe tune in and listen to some of what you have out there?
Yeah, man. So like I said, I was 19 years old, and I'll get you back to that after this, man. But
sure.
Like I said, I'm 19 years old. We've been playing music, man, since I was 14. I learned how to play the guitar, and that was when I played my first show. I was 14 years old, and ever since then, man, we've been rocking and rolling all over the Southeast, playing for guys like Shenandoah, Confederate Railroad, the Red Clay Strays, Channing Wilson, all kinds of great guys, man. We've been really blessed. So how you can find my music is if you go on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, you search up Camden Smith Music, CAMDEN Smith Music. And man, we got unreleased originals, new originals. We got songs on Apple Music, anything, wherever you get your music from, anything that has a search bar, man, you can look up our songs. And yeah, man, we're playing shows. We have some shows coming through. Was this September? So we have a few shows this month and some in October, man. So hopefully you guys will come out, and hopefully we'll make it up to New Jersey, man.
Yeah, well, I'm in Arizona now, but I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, Arizona. There we go.
Yeah, much more. I think there's more country music avenues out here in Arizona than New Jersey, but
absolutely. But hey, man, yeah, I appreciate you, brother. And here's Dad, man.
I appreciate you. Good luck to you with wrestling and your music as well. Good luck to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. See you, man. All right.
Well, that was great. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. And basically, any last thoughts you wanted to share for your fans that might be listening and might be thinking about picking up that book?
Man, I'll tell you what. It was important to me, and I say this all the time. It was important to me. The last kid that's going to stand there and ask for my autograph, I was going to stand there and give it to him. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate all them kids, all them adults, all the parents that used to come to the matches and support professional wrestling. I mean, that's my first love. And, man, I appreciate all the fans out there. Without the fans, and this is old cliche, but it's true. Without the fans, we are nothing. And a lot of guys don't know that, but, if not for the fans, we would be nothing.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck with the book. I wish your son the best, both with wrestling and with his music. And thank you both for sitting here and doing this with me. I really appreciate both of your time.
Well, man, I appreciate it, and it was fun, really fun. And hit me up with a link, and we'll push it on this end too.
Yep. What I'll do is I'll put a picture up of you and a cover of the book, and I'll put it up on YouTube, and I'll upload an MP3 to my website, and I'll send you all those links once it's up and online, probably by tomorrow evening.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank you so much.
You got it. Have a good night, guys, and thank you so much again for taking the time to do this. I wish you both the best.
All right. Thank you, brother.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, for us.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, guys. We had a lovely conversation. First lady. Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Oh, my God. You win. Love being interactive.
I was not shooting. Yeah, I almost missed my fan. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Excuse my language. You're going to go to the shop. See him now. Into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's going to be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Champion. Arrogant.
Jesus makes me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional
Made
wrestling.
in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not going to talk to you, dummies.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling
Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer, knock down your door, and turn it on for you. Or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day.
It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.